Hare Krishna. My name is Brajabihari Das, and the GBC Strategic Planning Team has asked me to speak a little bit about Kartik. I was fortunate enough to be able to celebrate the Kartik festival in Vrindavan for over 20 years. And I thought today I'd talk a little bit about what Shastra, what Srila Prabhupada says about Kartik, how to honor Kartik, how to celebrate it, some of the history in ISKCON surrounding how Kartik has become such a popular part of the ISKCON fabric, and some of the festivals that happen within the month of Kartik. So let's begin a little bit by what Srila Prabhupada said in the Nectar of Devotion and some of his letters. So Nectar of Devotion, he writes, one of the most important of these ceremonial functions is called Urja Brata. Urja Brata is observed in the month of Kartik. In the Padma Purana, it is said, the Lord may offer liberation or material happiness to a devotee, but after some devotional service has been executed, particularly in Mathura during the month of Kartik, the devotees want only to attain pure devotional service to the Lord. And then below that, you'll see that there's a short excerpt from Satsvarup Maharaj about the first Kartik celebration. And he writes, the first time we observed Kartik was in the late fall of 1966. We would go to his, Srila Prabhupada's apartment in the evening. It was exciting to light a birthday candle, let the wax drop onto the coffee table, and then stick the candle into the hot wax. Swamiji, why are we doing this? To increase your devotion, he said. That explained it perfectly. And then interestingly, Srila Prabhupada strikes a somewhat different tone in a letter to Jayapataka Maharaj in 1969, where he said, you have asked about the specialness of the month of Kartik, and the answer is that it is a special inducement for persons who are not in Krishna consciousness to perform some devotional service. For persons who are doing nothing in Krishna consciousness, it is an indirect inducement to take to devotional service in earnest seriousness. In this connection, there is a good example that sometimes a store gives a special concession to attract new customers. But for those who are already customers, there is no need of a special sale. They will purchase at any cost if they know the important value of the goods. Similarly, those who are pure devotees do not aspire for any concession, and out of spontaneous love try to engage themselves in devotional service 24 hours a day, 365 days every year without any stoppage. So in that last letter to Jayapataka Maharaj, Prabhupada is, of course, he's not putting down the month of Kartik, but just saying he's giving it somewhat less importance than he was, for example, in the Nectar of Devotion. So for me, when I see Srila Prabhupada saying different things at different times, pretty much on any topic, I conclude that it's a detail, not a principle. In the 6th chapter of the Nectar of Devotion, right in the beginning of that chapter, Srila Prabhupada talks about the difference between principles and details, and talks about how, the principles are things that can never change, details are things that can be adjusted according to time, place, and circumstance. So practicing Kartik, my understanding is that it's a detail, but details can be very important. And so this is a very important detail, one that our previous acharyas have celebrated and set aside time in Kartik for increasing their bhakti. And also our own Srila Prabhupada in 1972, he performed the Urja Brata, the Kartik Vrat in Vrindavan, and gave those wonderful Nectar of Devotion classes that many of us have heard and are so indebted to the fact that they were recorded so nicely that we can listen to them even today. So let's talk a little bit about how to celebrate, how to practice, increase our bhakti during the month of Kartik. Well, I think the simplest way that we all know is to increase our hearing and chanting. Devotees like His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu and His Holiness Keshava Bharati Maharaj, they generally come together. I don't know about this year with COVID, but generally come together in Kartik at Govardhan, and they spend 6-7 hours a day reading from Srila Prabhupada's books. Other devotees, they increase their rounds. They chant 25 rounds a day, 9 extra rounds, 32 rounds a day, 64 rounds a day, and some even more than that. And my experience with increasing rounds, I found a little, I don't know if you call it a trick, but a little way to increase my rounds with less anxiety. I remember one year in Vrindavan, I vowed to chant 25 rounds a day or 9 extra rounds a day. And I found that sometimes, because I had a very busy service at that time, it would be 10 o'clock at night and I'd still have 6, 7, 8, sometimes 9 rounds left to chant. And so I'd be just trying to get them done and be in a lot of anxiety and take rest really, really late. So I came up with the idea that 9 rounds times, if Kartik is 28 days, that's 252 rounds. So I just had to chant 252 extra rounds that month. Sometimes only chanting 3 and sometimes maybe chanting 30 extra rounds, but cumulatively 252 or whatever, if you're chanting 16 extra rounds or 32 extra rounds or 48 extra rounds, you just multiply it in that way. And I found that a great way to increase my japa and not increase too much my level of anxiety. Other devotees, they perform some kinds of extra austerities. Some may give up sweets for the month of Kartik, which is a challenge, especially on Govardhan Puja. Some may take less meals, maybe eat once a day. The first time I really practiced the Kartik Brat was 1987. And my roommate that year was eating 1 plantain and a small cup of milk every day. And that was it for the month of Kartik. So he was a real kind of tapasvi kind of person who performed austerity easily. I remember one year I did Vrindavan Parikrama every day for the month of Kartik. So we can do different things. One year I was so up to my ears in management at that time in Vrindavan, and with so many hundreds, if not thousands of extra devotees coming and wanting to talk to me and deal with some of their issues. My vow that month was just remain sane, just somehow remain sane, somehow get through Kartik without losing my mind because of so much extra work and extra devotees. And one devotee took a very interesting vow. He vowed to not criticize any Vaishnava for a month. And he told me that he found that surprisingly difficult to do. As far as the history in ISKCON, my first Kartik was 1977. And I do remember the basic way that we celebrate Kartik. We offer a ghee lamp, usually in the evening, and chant the Damodarastakam prayers. And so I did that, but I didn't know anything about what Kartik was about, and I probably hadn't read the Nectar of Devotion, or it hadn't really clicked, that passage that we read earlier. And for subsequent years, I was mainly on traveling Sankirtan for the next 12 years. And I don't even know if we chanted the Damodarastakam or offered ghee lamps when we were traveling. For us, the only mantra was the Hare Krishna mantra and Sankirtan, like that. But then I went to Vrindavan in 1987, and I would say 1987 was the real shifting point in our movement in terms of now making Kartik a real special celebratory month in ISKCON. Some pockets of devotees understood its significance earlier, but in 1987, 2 things happened. 1987 was the first year of the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education, and it was also the first year of the Braj Mandala Parikrama. And in subsequent years, the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education had many of the most senior and most well-known teachers in our movement teaching during Kartiks. Then many devotees came to hear from them, and of course, the Braj Mandala Parikrama started just increasing every year, more and more devotees, and gradually Vrindavan became a place where just thousands of devotees would flock to during Kartik. And then prominent spiritual masters would have parikramas during Kartik, sometimes with 5, 6, or 7,000 devotees on parikrama. So then it just, practically speaking, the Krishna Balaram Mandir became too small for the celebration in Kartik. So 1987, I would say, was a pivotal year in terms of our understanding of the significance of Kartik in ISKCON. As for the festivities, well, after, of course, the Purnima, which is was a festival celebrating the Rasa dance, then we have Narottama Das Thakur's disappearance day. After that, Bahulastami, and the appearance day of Radhakund, where sometimes devotees would go at midnight and take bath in Radhakund, or at least many, many, many Brijbasis would do so. Then there's Diwali, and there's the wonderful festival of Govardhan Puja. And then there's the bittersweet festival of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day. There's Gopastami, and then many devotees do special brats for the last 5 days of Bhishma Panchaka. So it's a joyous time for doing extra service, for increasing our hearing and chanting, for increasing our bhakti, while considering that letter to His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj from Srila Prabhupada, to not neglect our basic duties in Krishna consciousness and our ongoing seva that we do throughout the year. So I wish you all the best for a joyous and spiritually enlivening month of Kartik. Hare Krishna.